Hello, Year 5. In today's grammar lesson, we are going to identify fronted adverbials and find out how to use them in our own writing. Today, you are going to need sheets of paper or your book that you write in, your pen or your pencil, and it might be helpful if you have some colored pencils with you today. You need your brain, of course, and lots of thinking. If you haven't got your pen and paper now, please go and get that. Pause the video. Right, now you're back, let's continue. Just to warm ourselves up so early in the morning, let's have a quick look at expanded noun phrases that we looked at last week. Please join in any time you like.
Nouns, can you handle this? Adjectives, can you handle this? Phrases, can you handle this? I don't think they can handle this. Choose a noun to describe, an adjective on the side. Double it, makes it right. Two adjectives on the side, two adjectives in your face. Split it with a come on, baby. Here it comes, and now phrase. Spend it in different ways. You can do much better if you add detail to the right. It would be much better if you had a phrase inside. Read my lips carefully if you like what you see. Right, and describe with me. Adjectives at the front of the noun you see, and a group of words that detail to it. I don't think you're ready for this detail. I don't think you're ready for this detail. I don't think you're ready for this. My noun has got two adjectives for you. I don't think you're ready for this detail. I don't think you're ready for this detail. I don't think you're ready for this. My noun has got two adjectives for you. Nouns, can you handle this? Adjectives, can you handle this? Phrases, can you handle this? I don't think you can handle this. Woo! Take a noun, say a man, add some detail if you can. Make him slim and oh so tall. Remember we can say it all. Now you got your adjectives. One can split up, the comma could. Spell it down, phrase is what it is. Can you handle this? I don't think you're ready for this detail. I don't think you're ready for this detail. I don't think you're ready for this. Cause my noun has got two adjectives for you. I don't think you're ready for this detail. I don't think you're ready for this detail. I don't think you're ready for this. Cause my noun has got two adjectives for you. Articles I need it round. Front up and expand it down. I can't help but wonder why you're not using description for me. Yeah. I use a noun phrase at every chance. Description, it can put you into a trance. I'm hoping you can handle all the detail in my words. So let's write it down and let's get to work. Ba-ba-dee-ba-doo, ba-dee, ba-ba-dee, ba-doo, ba-dee, ba-doo, ba-dee-doo, ba-dee-doo, bow, 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 bow. I don't think you're ready for this detail. I don't think you're ready for this detail. I don't think you're ready for this. Cause my noun has got two adjectives for you. Yeah. I don't think you're ready for this detail. I don't think you're ready for this detail. I don't think you're ready for this. Cause my noun has got two adjectives for you. Yeah. I don't think you're ready for this detail.
So let's hope you are ready for this detail. Now, can you write a few expanded noun phrases for this image? You can keep it simple by just using a noun, an adjective, a comma, an adjective and a noun. You could also add an adverbial after the noun to give a little bit more detail. Pause the video and write your own expanded noun phrases about this image down. Let's see how you did. You could have written tall, comma, slim, woody. You could also have written sturdy, comma, confident, Buzz. And in a sentence, a sturdy, confident Buzz is an interesting character. Fronted adverbials are words or phrases at the beginning of a sentence that are used to describe the actions that follows. Now, just to remind you, a phrase does not have a verb in it, so it cannot stand on its own as a main clause. Let's see which words and phrases we can use at the beginning of a sentence. Nervously, comma, and then you can write your sentence. Or a phrase, during the day, comma. Now these words and phrases give the reader extra information about the main clause by telling them when, where, or how the action happened. Nervously tells us how the person was feeling, and during the day tells us when it took place. Let's look at a few more examples. During the day, I work in an office. If I underline my fronted adverbial, during the day, I will know when I work in an office. It tells me the time of day. So it is a when question I can ask. When do I work in an office? During the day, I work in an office. With anger, I glared across the room to see where the beeping noise came from. How did I feel when I glared across the room? I was angry, so with anger, I glared. That's how I felt. In the sitting room, the joyous children found out that they would be going to the seaside for a holiday. Where were the children when they heard this good news? That's right, they were in the sitting room, so it tells us the place or where the children were when they heard the good news. I think we are all waiting for that good news in this current pandemic we are in. Now, fronted adverbials are covered under an umbrella, a, sort of like a virtual umbrella. And it's all these questions where we can ask when, where, or how something has happened. And the questions we can answer to those will tell us a bit more about the action. Let's explore. First of all, we're going to be looking at different types of the fronted adverbials, and we're going to start with when. And when, like we said before, is about the time where it took place. And it's not just time on a clock, but it could also be in the morning, one evening. So in the morning, I went for a walk. One evening, I had a lovely meal. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it is time for me to go home. Eventually, I got my prize after winning the competition. Later, you will be doing some work. Afterwards, you are allowed to have a break. These are the fronted adverbials. They are words and phrases that tell us when an action is taking place. Now it's your turn. Complete these sentences. Pause the video, write them down, and choose a fronted adverbial. It could be a word or a phrase that you will put in the front of the sentence to tell us when Francis strolled through the streets of Hornsey and when they found the perfect spot for their picnic. Great, let's continue. You could have said, early in the morning, Francis strolled through the streets of Hornsey. You could have said, late in the evening, she strolled through the streets of Hornsey. I've chosen, at midday, Francis strolled through the streets of Hornsey. So if I ask the question, when did Francis stroll through the streets of Hornsey? You can answer me, at midday. What did you write down for the second one? Let's find out if you have the same idea as me. Later, they found the perfect spot for their picnic. Earlier, they found the perfect spot for their picnic. Or the one that I've chosen is eventually they found the perfect spot for their picnic. Let's continue. So the next fronted adverbial we're going to be looking at is where, which if I ask the question where something happened, my fronted adverbial will tell me. In the distance, I could see a strange figure. Behind the door, I hung my coat. To the north is a very long road. Near the river, I would like to have a picnic. Inside the classroom, the children were very busy. Far away, far away, far, far away, it feels like at the moment, but far away, there was a haunted house. Your turn to complete the sentences by asking the question where something has happened. So, where the golden sun was setting, where the wealthy gentleman who was wearing a new hat and an extravagant coat stood in silence. Now, the word extravagant means a very fancy coat. Pause the video and write the sentences down with your chosen fronted adverbial to tell us where these things took place. Let's look at our answers. You could have chosen something like behind the mountain, the golden sun was setting. You could have said in the east, the golden sun was setting. Apologies. I've chosen in the distance, the golden sun was setting. So it tells us exactly where we had to look, a direction. You could have chosen for the next sentence, in the bookshop, the wealthy gentleman who was wearing a new hat and an extravagant coat stood in silence. Or next to the bench in the park. I've chosen near his mansion. Now, I think you've noticed that I did not say comma because I've already had my comma in the sentence. But it's important that when you write a fronted adverbial to add your comma to demarcate where your fronted adverbial is. Let's continue. The last one we're going to look at today is the fronted adverbial of how. How did something happen? How did it take place? So when I ask the question how, it will tell me in my answer of my sentence. Nervously, she opened the door when the bell rang. Slowly, the child walked across the street. Happily, the girl jumped when she saw her best friend. With fear in his eyes, he stared outside the window. As fast as she could, she ran to the park. With caution, I opened the door. Now it's going to be your turn to complete the sentences by asking the question how. How did the child scream at the top of his lungs? How did the wealthy gentleman who was wearing a new hat and an extravagant coat look around the deserted room? Pause the video and write your sentences down. Which fronted adverbial will you choose to show how these two sentences happened? Let's have a look at what you've chosen. You could have chosen as loud as he could, the child screamed at the top of his lungs. You could have said the child was petrified. How did the child feel? Petrified. He was so scared. He screamed at the top of his lungs. I have chosen with fear in his eyes. The child screamed at the top of his lungs. For the second sentence, you could have chosen with fear in his eyes. If he was looking scared or feeling scared, you could have said he looked nervous. So nervously, the wealthy gentleman who was wearing a new hat and an extravagant coat looked around the deserted room. I've chosen curiously. That tells me he wondered what was going on. How was he feeling? He was feeling a bit curious. He was nosy. So curiously, he looked around the deserted room. Well done. You can now use and identify the fronted adverbials to answer the questions when, where, and how. Your first task is to make a mind map of the different types of fronted adverbials. Now, this is where your free colored pencils will come in handy. You are going to write down your own ideas, just like I've done here, but please write your own words in. You can make as many circles as you like. You can write as many words down as you like. You can do it slightly different. You can do it in a table, any way you like to present it. But it has to be a list of the 3 types of adverbials we looked at today, fronted adverbials. So I love a cloud. So I've put my cloud down and I've put down in the distance, somewhere, or next to the river. And those are fronted adverbials of where. Then I'm going to use a different color and I'm going to write down my fronted adverbials of how. Nervously, with fear in his eyes, or angrily. And then the last ones I'm going to write down is going to be my when fronted adverbials. Later that day, earlier, all day long. Now, of course, there's many more examples, and that's exactly what I expect you to write down. So pause the video now and make your mind map of the 3 types of fronted adverbials you learned about today. Use your 3 different colors. You can also add the words who, where, and when onto your mind map, if that will help you, like a little key. You can pause the video and write as many as you like. When you're done, let's continue. For your second task, I'm going to ask you to go to J2E, where you will find a worksheet called Fronted Adverbials, and I would like you to work on the sheet for today. There will be quite a variety of things for you to do, little task identifying fronted adverbials and writing your own down, but it won't take you too long because you've done a lot of work today and you are quite confident using fronted adverbials now. Also remember to post the work that you did in this lesson so that we can have a good look at how well you did. And remember, year 5, you are awesome. You are working so hard and we are so proud of you. I hope you've enjoyed today's grammar session. Goodbye.